Welcome to Mystic John Paranormal, and today we're going to have a look at RemPod's. I did a quick debunk and somebody yesterday, and somebody said, I don't know what the fuss is because this team do put on the sort of 15th, 16th page right at the bottom that it's for entertainment's purpose, but one of the things that this team did was they put a RemPod down and they said, this detects movement of ghosts. Now, I don't like people suggesting to people who are watching that a RemPod detects ghost activity. It is supposed to be able to detect the change in the electromagnetic field around the antenna and around the RemPod itself. However, that is not proven to signify that a ghost is present, nor does it prove that there is a ghost around the RemPod itself. It certainly doesn't prove that there is ghost activity in the room. So what does a RemPod do? A RemPod detects by emitting a certain amount of energy. It tries to detect the changes in electromagnetic field around that particular RemPod. It can also be set off by something moving the antenna. So quite often they have a sensor on the antenna. So if you push the antenna itself will make the RemPod light up. So movement will make the lights light up and it squeak away. And the electromagnetic field being around there, diverting the energy, will also make it go off. Now, is that always going to be a spirit, a ghost, and pushing its energy against the box? Well, we don't know, because we don't know for certain that ghosts exist, let alone what they're made up of. We're assuming, and it's very difficult, bad thing to assume, that a spirit is made up of electromagnetic energy or emits it, and then when it goes close to the RemPod, it will set it off. However, simple things. If I just grab my pocket and I go to, there's two devices in my pocket. One is my garage key. One is my car key. Now, both of these, when clicked, will set the RemPod off. Click. The field gets pushed by the fact that this is emitting a certain amount of energy straight in the direction of the RemPod. Bang, it goes off. Also, somebody actually took one of these devices. A very, very astute person took it about 3 miles down in an American mine. And no spirits down here, he says. Absolutely not. Never had any people saying there is. Put this RemPod down with another device, and critical was the other device, and they sat it there, and soon the RemPod went off, and they hadn't asked any questions. They wanted it just to sit there and do nothing, but the RemPod went off, so they took it back up and they had to look at the information on the other box they'd sat next to it. Laboratory conditions, remember this, laboratory conditions only. Took it up, and apparently the wavelength of the electrical energy that came down was actually from low frequency radio. So a low frequency radio wave had gone through the earth and hit this, just bounced off curiously at one point and gone straight to the RemPod, set it off, and then disappeared and never came back, and it just bounced off it that one instance, set it off through X miles below the surface, and it went off. Now, that if we were to say that a RemPod definitely detects ghost movement, then that was ghost movement. But in laboratory conditions, it was not. It was a low wave radio frequency being able to gently go through the earth all that way down into the mine shaft that they were in, and it set off the RemPod. So RemPods can be used indeed to try and detect spirits, But how do we want to do this? Because it's really important. We can't just say, or I can't just say as Mystic John Paranormal, don't use them, because they can be used. I give you an instance at 30 East Drive, I think it was, where one of the debunkers was sat. He wasn't looking in the right direction. He was doing the S-test method, so unfortunately, he didn't actually see or hear it. But around him, all of a sudden, they had I think 5 RemPod's down the hallway, and each one went off one by one, bang, 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 after a question. Now, it went off. They went off visually, bang, 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 bang. Now that, to me, says that's not just a radio wave. A radio wave would have hit all the lot. If you'd have pressed your key to set them off and tried faking it, it would have set all 5 off. So things like that sort of tell you that perhaps, just perhaps, that can't be made up by radio waves. It can't be made up by keys. It has to have been something that has set each one off one by one. Perhaps it's an animal, a rodent ran past and knocked them, and the antenna wobbled and it's touched each one. But you have to start thinking that's not going to be debunked by the usual excuse of keys, radio waves. The walkie-talkies, they anything that uses electrical frequency to transmit something, such as a walkie-talkie, can set it off. And but they'd set these things off altogether. So what I would say is, if you're going to use them, don't just use one. Use two. Use two. Separate them apart so that the fields are not interrupting each other, and then ask questions, because if they both go off together, then there's a high likelihood it's just something bouncing off the local the antenna from the radio station, bang, accidentally just blasts against the you get a sudden raise in energy, and like he did in the mine, and it will set them both off. So if they both go off, then you can say, right. But if you start doing this, and I've seen some investigators do this, and it's really good, one there, set that one off if you want to say yes, set that one off if you want to say no. Brilliant. I have no problem with that, because then what you're doing, guys, is you're saying, I'm not disproving it. I mean, it could be that he's pointing the key that way, and it just misses that one and hits that one, but it's very, very unlikely, isn't it? Very, very difficult to judge. So it's very difficult to start cheating with it. It's very difficult to make it one go off and not the other, and especially if it's in front of you. The thought of having a rodent or a cat brush past it, they'll both be on camera, they'll both be visible. So then we start getting that thought of, it can't be coincidence, can it? Just one and not the other. And then you ask another question, and we get a different answer on the other RemPod. So I would always try and do this in at least pairs, mainly because if you do it with one, there's always going to be some bright spark saying, "Oh, I've debunked that. Somebody's got his hand in his pocket. That's easy." And actually, I mean, what would you believe it? I mean, what happens if someone's actually faking it and he's got his hand in his pocket and he's about to click his radio to make it turn on? Oh yeah, that's an answer. Yes, I'll click it, and all of a sudden it goes off, beep, and he hasn't clicked his radio. He's actually, a spirit has answered it, but you're faking it and you've got your hand in your pocket on your radio. So somebody's immediately going to say, well, he's got his hand in his pocket on his radio, I've debunked that. But it was real because a spirit has actually answered. So I think we've got to be very careful. We've got to make sure that we can't be debunked. And the only way we can do that with RemPod's, I'm afraid, is to have more than one, because then you can at least say, look, that one is the one I want an answer on. That's the one I don't want an answer on. Or that's yes, that's no, that's John, that's Albert, whatever. And you can get some form of meaningful response. So that's my take on RemPod's and how to use them, and how to use them so that debunkers can't immediately shoot you down. Because believe you me, RemPod's used in single, just as one item, they will always have at least one debunker immediately debunking what you're doing, even if you're absolutely kosher and you're not faking it. They will always try and pull that one out of the hat. It's on its own. So do try and use two. That would be my take on it. Please do give me your comments down below. What are your take on how to use RemPod's, and should we be using RemPod's in investigations? I'll be very interested to hear your comments. Mystic John Paranormal over for one more video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe.